Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm back with my Pretty Little Lies season 4 finale update, where I basically talk about all my theories and what I think might be going down basically. And yeah, thank you guys for all your input and stuff, and hopefully I can update a bit more regularly on this channel. Thank you guys so much for subscribing as well. It really does mean a lot. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna get straight into the video. I watched this episode twice, so there will be a few spoilers in there, like a lot of spoilers, because I can't hold back. Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack a few episodes just before the finale, and then I'm gonna talk about the finale at the very end. So in my notes from the previous episodes, I've got little notes in this like notepad. We left off the mid-season finale finding out that Ezra was A. We thought Ezra was A, and as I predicted, they've turned it around to basically make it look like he is crazy, but he's not A. We find out that Ezra's basically some weirdo who knew about the girls before he met them, because he met Alison prior to meeting them, and he planned the whole thing because he wanted to investigate and find out who murdered Alison. He used all of this information to write his book because he's like an aspiring writer. That does kind of explain things like the typewriter and all the weird things in his apartment, but I still think that there's a lot more to it, and they're not going to let us in on it till a bit later on in season 5. They have kind of made us sympathize with him a little bit in the season finale, but I think that that might change. Right, okay, let's talk about Ezra. Okay, my battery's running really low, so I'm going to be as quick as I can. Okay, so with Ezra, I think he was so obviously shifty that I'm surprised it took Arya that long to realise what was going on. But when she did, I literally felt for her. And I think one of my favourite scenes ever is when she was basically trashing his apartment with a baseball bat. So the second time I watched the season finale and he gets shot and she's basically running to his rescue, I can't stop laughing because all I can think about is her and the baseball bat when she was just like, no! And now she's like crying over him saying, don't you dare die on me. I thought that was kind of funny, so that's why I was basically laughing. But he was very suspicious in the last few episodes, and I feel like the writers didn't try and sugarcoat it. Like when he said he forgot the chickpeas and they were right there all along, his little lair in the bottom of the cabin, when he basically tried to guilt trip Arya into like telling him more and sharing more information with him so they could be closer and stuff. I thought that was very suspicious, but they made it so obviously so that I knew something might change the whole dynamic very soon. Hey, I'm back. Hopefully the lighting hasn't changed too much and it doesn't look completely weird, but I'm going to carry on from where I left off. So let me know what you guys think about the Ezra being slightly loco, potentially could be A, because it doesn't explain why he was shouting at that lady in the car. It's a bit too coincidental, and it doesn't also explain why when Jake told Arya that he saw Ezra having an argument and being really aggressive to this lady in a car, literally after that scene his foot gets sliced and diced by like a million knives which have been embedded into his punching bag. He did like a roundhouse kick basically, and he got stabbed in the foot, and I literally felt that. I was like, oh, that's bad. And we never saw him again. When Arya was talking to the counselor dude, Jesse, I think his name is, the like new mentor counselor, and Ezra saw her, I really thought he was next. I was like, Jesse's next, he's gonna get it, because Ezra's obviously not messing around with anyone. But we never saw him again either, so who knows. One scene that I thought was really strange was when Emily's dad was talking to Ezra. What have they got in common? Like, what, like, when did they start doing scenes together? That was just really strange. I thought that was a little bit suspect. And maybe Emily's dad isn't part of the, like, army. Maybe he's actually up to something else. So, on to the season finale. A is for answers. I think that's what the episode was called. And things got crazy. Things got mental. They really, really did. I think this is where the whole spin and twist, and if you're not looking for clues, you might not notice it, thing comes in. Noel Khan shows up out of nowhere. We haven't seen him in so many seasons, and he basically takes the girls to see Alison, and they're like, okay, it's strange that Alison's still talking to him. And Alison, the first thing she says after they've been reunited is because he's got secrets too, as in like that's why she trusts him. And I was like, what secrets does he have? And it is very, very strange that they are basically friends, I guess. So when the police turned up and they found Spencer's car but they didn't see the girls were in another building, and the first thing they said was, is that Noel? And then they said, call 911. And then I think Emily or someone says, oh, Noel has our phones. Why did he have their phones? Very, very strange. I don't know why. Spencer's dad was flying in from New York. The police knew that he was already there. His wife did not. I was going to say the kids. The girls basically went to Philadelphia because they got a clue which basically linked Philadelphia to the whereabouts of Ali. The police get there because they say they've seen Spencer's vehicle. The only thing is they get there and the girls aren't there. But then when Ezra gets shot on the roof, the skyline that he's looking at is the view of New York, not Philadelphia. So I don't know if the writers thought they could get away with it or it's meant to be a clue, but it was pretty strange. My geographic, like, you know, I'm good with landmarks, so I pretty much like noticed that was a bit sketchy. So yeah, that was a bit strange. Also, how did Ezra even get there in the first place? That's definitely a major question. We know that he's really good at snooping and spying on people, so maybe he just followed them there. But when the attacker came up on the roof and Ezra was like, stop, I know who you are. Why didn't he just say who it was? And then when that person heard that, the gun went straight to Ezra's head, basically. Like, if Ezra didn't duck, it was literally going to be over for Ezra, like curtains down, like that was it. So it's good that he did duck. They had a little bit of a kerfuffle and he did eventually get shot. This is what I thought was really funny. When Arya was like slaying his apartment with a baseball bat and wrecking everything inside out, she didn't give two hoots. And then as soon as he's been shot, obviously all those emotions got tossed aside and she was like crying over him and saying like, don't you quit on me, don't you die, don't close your eyes. And I was just like, I thought it was funny because all I could think about was her whole baseball bat thing. But yeah. I also think the person on the roof, even though people are saying it could have been Mike, I think, hear me out, I think it's Ian, okay? Because he faked his death once before. There was some random suicide note in the barn, but I reckon we've been played as well. So even though it looked like he had committed suicide, maybe he wasn't dead at all and we got played. So that's another option. The build, think about it. Ian really wanted to make sure Alison didn't get anywhere near him and Melissa and like ruin their lives or whatever. And he's the only one who's literally willing to hurt Spencer in the first place. Like, he's willing to kill to like protect himself. People are saying that when the baddie jumped across onto the other side of the roof, that it sounded like a girl. I wasn't really paying too much attention, but I think it's the build of a pretty benched dude, and I would go with Ian. That's what I think. If it's not Ian, then I think it could be Travis, but I really hope it's not because he is awesome. So now we know about Alison and Ezra and their story. I'm still saying never believe anything Alison says, but from watching the episode twice, say we do believe Alison's story, it's basically a matter of, does Ezra love Arya or Alison more? Because he was writing a book about Alison, he went into like deep depths and lengths to make sure he solved the crime. Like, he faked being in a relationship with someone, and like I think he eventually did like Arya, but he didn't like her enough to stop writing it, if that made sense. Ezra is coming back in season 5, so fear not. But yeah, I think that's kind of cool how they twisted it around, because now we sympathise with him. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to season 5. When Holbrook went to Mrs. De Laurentiis and said, I'm almost certain that your daughter's not in that grave, and she was like, well, I am. It kind of just made it look like she knew she was in there because she's the one who basically buried her. So maybe she did think Alison was dead, but then who was she really buying those clothes for that Hannah's mum saw upstairs? That was bizarre. And you really can't deny that Mrs. D has been acting like crazy as heck, like creeping up in Spencer's room and putting like earth under earth. Is that what you call it? Earth, or like soil, gravel, dirt, whatever, on her bed sheets and creeping her out. And then what really creeped me out was when Spencer was looking out her window, but then she was behind her and then you see her shadow go past. That freaked me out. I think Mrs. D, Jason and Alison are all in it together. I don't know what their plan is, but I think that's what they're doing, basically. I don't trust them at all. So key things that stood out in this episode was really the relationship between Alison and Mrs. De Laurentiis, and you got to see a little bit of the behind the scenes, things we never saw before. So one thing that really stood out was when Mrs. D said, never turn your back on a Hastings. So that raises up the question of who is she talking about? So up until recently, you probably would have thought she was talking about Spencer, but technically Jason is a Hastings as well, because Mr. Hastings and Mrs. D got their groove on. So basically he's a half Hastings. So that's what she could have meant. There's a bit where basically Jason's on the couch as well, and then Alison and Mrs. D are talking, and then as soon as she realizes that Jason's there, she's like, oh, how long have you been there? Like really shaken up. And he was obviously out of it and stuff, but the fact that she was moved enough to be like, oh, how long have you been there, shows that she didn't trust him. She wasn't talking directly about him, but it's one of those things where she didn't want him to hear whatever she was saying, so it did throw her off that he was there. And it still doesn't make sense why Jason would lie about going to rehab, because the last time we saw him, he was in a hospital bed and then he disappeared, and then he resurfaces saying that he has been at a rehab facilitation, but in reality it's been closed down for like a couple of good years, so I don't know why he would lie about it. Strange. Also, the night that Alison went missing, the phone call that Mrs. D took was very, very suspicious. There was a lot of like hush hush talking and get here as soon as you can, I can't believe this happened, like blah blah blah. I think that phone call was very important and very crucial, and I think I've read this somewhere, but we think that maybe if the twin theory is still being put out there, that maybe Alison's sister is in a crazy home and maybe she escaped. We know that Mrs. D did see who hit Alison over the head with a rock, and she's covering up for that person, and the only person that I think she would cover up for would be one of her children. So I reckon it could be Jason, it could be Alison's crazy twin, or if again the theory is still out there that there is a twin theory going on, I think I know it's crazy, call me crazy, but I think Melissa and Jason are twins, separated at birth. One went with the Hastings and one went with the De Laurentiis family, and I think it was Melissa who did it. Call me crazy, just putting it out there. If that's not true, then I think Cece might be related to the De Laurentiis family somehow. And she might be Jason's twin, but that's what I've come up with. Also, it's kind of possible that Mrs. De Laurentiis is a twin herself, and the one being buried isn't Mrs. De Laurentiis, but it's her twin. And I think it could be Mrs. D's crazy twin if she has one, or it could be Mr. Hastings, because at the police station, that's the last place we saw her. Also, we're trying to work out who killed the other blonde girl. Cece in the beginning of the season finale said that she did know who did it, and that person was trying to hurt her friend Alison. If she's on the run, why would she sign into a hotel using her real name unless she wanted to get caught? So I feel like there was a clue in that somewhere. And Melissa said it wasn't Spencer, she knows who did it, and then she whispers into Mr. Hastings' ears. You would think she would be saying, oh, it was me, but the look on his face wasn't like, oh no, I need to cover this up. I think it was more the look of, oh my days, it was me. I think Mr. Hastings did it. So Mr. Hastings, I think, killed the blonde girl. Spencer got framed for it. He tried to cover her tracks like he said so many times, but he must have missed something, which basically put Spencer back into like the limelight. Everyone thinks it's her who done it. And I think Melissa must have seen him do it. And maybe he was on some drugs or he was drunk and it's slowly coming back to him. But I think it was him who basically got Mrs. D at the end. Because when they met in the police station and he was like, oh, do we have an understanding? Like, is everything like still the same story? There was a little bit of tension and it was a bit weird. Also, we find out that Mona was kind of in on it from the beginning because she's the one who helped Alison disappear. So she was faking that she didn't know where Alison was all this time. Alison does say that Mona did play her for a fool. So this is my other theory. I think that Mona hired A because she wanted to basically take Alison's place and become popular and get rid of Alison. You know how people hire like hitmen? I think Mona hired A because she was obviously like infatuated with her, but she wanted to be popular and be just like her. Only A turned against her. Even when we found out that Mona was part of the A team, it was really obvious that she was infatuated with this A person. She's like, I've never seen her before. Like, did you see her? Like, she really wanted to find out who this person was. Like, she looked up to them and admired them. So I thought that was really weird, but Mona is weird. And then I think basically A turned on her, and that's when she started to get a little bit more darker. Oh, and there's a part where Alison told Mona to go to the counter and say that Vivian sent you, which basically means she's been using the name Vivian, like the alias ID of Vivian Darkbloom, for a while. But why would she need to use that name, like way before all this stuff happened? It's kind of strange that she didn't just say, oh, tell them Ali sent you. She's Vivian. That's a bit weird. That means that someone kind of already knew about her alter ego before we found out about Redcoat. So that's all. I hope you guys liked this video. Let me know what your thoughts and theories are. I would love to know. I'm really looking forward to season 5, and it comes out on June the 10th. So yeah, I'll see you guys for another video soon. Bye.